Greg Loarie is on the line with us, a staff attorney for Earth Justice, earthjustice.org. Jeff, welcome to the program.
Thanks very much.
Greg Loarie. I'm looking at the wrong line on my... am I pronouncing your name right, Loarie?
Yes.
Okay, Laorie.
Earth Justice. That wasn't quite right.
That's not correct, right? Okay, tell me how to spell it.
Loarie.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's how it's spelled in front of me. I need to get stronger glasses. Anyhow, Greg, Earth Justice, we've been hearing about colony collapse disorder, the loss of the bees here for some time. And I saw an article in one of the science publications yesterday or the day before that there is now really a substantial body of evidence that colony collapse disorder is tied to the these nicotine-based pesticides, at least in some parts of the world. But and the USDA just came out with a report on the demise of honeybees, and you guys have a report, the case of the vanishing bees. Tell us about this.
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. We are at the point of crisis with respect to honeybees. It's really quite unprecedented. Starting in about 2006, we started losing honeybee colonies at rates that we just had never seen before. That year, something like 30 to sometimes 90% of bees just simply died or disappeared, and commercial beekeepers started sounding the alarm. Since 2006, those trends have continued. We continue to lose about a third of our honeybee colonies every year, and it's really a huge issue of concern. And you might wonder, now, why does an environmental group like Earth Justice particularly concerned about the plight of the Eurasian honeybee? And I'll tell you, because the honeybee crisis is a human health crisis. 1 out of 3 mouthfuls of food that we eat can be traced back to a honeybee's pollination. And as it turns out, it's the most nutritious of the 3 mouthfuls. These are the things like nuts and fruits, vegetables, squash, all the stuff that we really ought to be eating. And so this really is a human health crisis of the first order, and sustainable agriculture really is at risk. So as you point out, there's a lot of, this is usually the case when you have a situation that's as dire as this, fingers start pointing in many different directions, and there's no doubt that there are a lot of reasons why honeybees are taking a hit. Yeah. But there's really no question that pesticides are playing a role. And the pesticides in particular, as you mentioned, are the neonicotinoids. And there are several reasons for that. First and foremost is that they are systemic insecticides. And that means that whereas with a normal pesticide, you might spray it on the plant and the pest is impacted by the dried spray droplets, that sort of thing. Systemic insecticides are actually absorbed into the growing plant itself, and it renders the plant and all of its tissues and pollen and nectar toxic to the bees. So you can really see why this becomes an issue. You've got a field that's treated with systemic insecticides. The bees visit the field.
Doesn't that mean that it's in our food too?
Well, it to some extent it is, absolutely. Now, the reality is that in many respects, neonicotinoids are less toxic to humans and less toxic to
because we smoke nicotine.
Well, that has its own issues.
Yeah,
but the fact that it might be less toxic to humans, that certainly doesn't mean that it's less toxic to bees. And in fact, these neonics are very toxic to bees. Right.
How do you address the issue that Jared Diamond brought up years ago in, I forget the title of the book, but it was one of his big books, in which he pointed out that in North America we had no honeybees and we had no earthworms, actually, before the arrival of Europeans, that both of these were things that were brought by Europeans. Is it that many of our food crops were also brought from Europe and therefore there's a problem? I mean, is it that whatever insects used to occupy that ecological niche and pollinate things like nut trees and fruit trees, that they've been displaced or wiped out by either the bees or by these same pesticides? Or, I mean, is there any... If the bees go and we are back to where America was in 1600 or in 1590, is is there a way to avoid a disaster scenario, or should we just be doing everything we can to keep the bees?
We need to be doing everything we can to keep the bees. I mean, both of what you alluded to is true. That the agricultural system that we brought over from Europe and the crops that we brought over from Europe, which were cultivated by humans for millennia and evolved alongside humans, those crops depend upon honeybees, the Eurasian honeybee in particular, for pollination. Now, some of the New World crops, there are native.
Corn, for example.
Well, corn actually doesn't rely on insects.
Right. It pollinates by wind.
It is a wind-pollinated crop, which is not to say that corn pollen isn't sometimes sort of used by bees. Bees will sometimes collect it, but the corn doesn't rely on the bees, which is not to say that the bees don't sometimes use the corn.
Right.
In any event, there are other native pollinating insects that can pollinate crops, absolutely. They are less abundant. They are not as easily farmed, really. So when you think about it, there are the systems that we've built and the agricultural systems that we have created require commercial, domesticated insect pollinators.
I just got it. It just all of a sudden it made perfect sense for me. Basically, the people who were living here before Europeans showed up were by and large hunter-gatherers. I mean, there were a few agricultural societies, but they weren't widespread, and they didn't use high-tech agriculture like we do. So they had not tamed nature. They had not domesticated nature. And so they didn't need domesticated pollinators. So the wild pollinators were adequate to the wild food that they were eating, and their population was fairly low. It was only a few million people. When Europeans showed up, they had already tamed nature. They had domesticated plants, and they had domesticated the pollinators for those plants alongside those plants. And we are now entirely reliant upon that system that was developed 400 or 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. Well, actually, arguably 10,000 years ago with the advent of the agricultural revolution in Europe and in the Middle East.
That's right. Let me give you just one really concrete example. There are estimated about 2.5 million managed domestic honeybee colonies in America. It takes 1.5 million of those, so over half. It takes 1.5 million of those colonies just to pollinate the California almond crop. So every year, 1.5 million honeybee colonies are put on tractor trailers, semi-trucks, trucked across the country and brought into the California Central Valley, where pretty much entirely, that's where all of the country's almonds are grown, just to pollinate that one crop. So it really is something that you can't have the almond industry without a bee.
So if we wanted to go back to the America before the bees, we'd have to go back to the America before the Europeans, which means we'd have to go back. We'd have to drop our population from 300 million and change back down to maybe 10 or 20 million, where it probably was at that time.
That's right. Or you'd have to accept a diet that consists of corn and soy.
And lots of weeds. And we don't have buffalo and deer and things anymore, at least not in the percentages that we used to, or fish for that matter. And they're all poisoned with mercury now. And it's like going back just ain't an option, is the bottom line. Mm-hmm. So what do we do? What is Earth Justice doing?
I think that the good news is that this is something that has really resonated. People are understanding the scope of this problem, and I can't tell you how heartened I am to see the response that our organization has had. I can't tell you how happy I am to see the extent to which the public interest organizations have come together on this issue. So a lot is being done. I'm hearing some background music, so I don't know.
Yeah, we got to wrap it up. But people can learn more about this over at earthjustice.org, I'm assuming?
Yes, absolutely.
Get the whole story. Okay, so get over to earthjustice.org and check it out. Greg, thanks so much for being with us.
I really appreciate it.